Hello, my name's Cam Farrow, and today we're going to be doing an introduction to building circuits for ENGG 1100. So this is the circuit diagram to wire a single motor to your motor controller, and we're going to do a video giving an overview of this right now. Alright, so we are going to be building a circuit for a single motor, and we are going to need the following materials: a breadboard, an Arduino, a battery pack, as well as a variety of smaller electrical components, including our motor controller, our switch, 2 diodes, 2 resistors, one 100 ohms, one 100 kilo ohms, 4 ceramic capacitors, and an electrolytic capacitor. So if you need to look at the circuit diagram, it is available in the week 4 lab materials for the computer lab. And you can take a look. It'll give you a list of all the specifics on each component, as well as an overview of the circuit we're going to be building. So if we look at this circuit diagram, the first thing we're going to do, and the easiest thing we're going to do, is attach some of the pins on this motor controller to ground. So I'm just going to put the motor controller into the breadboard across the bridge. It should snap down. And then we're going to wire pins 5, 6, 15, and 16 to ground, or the blue rails. Oh, my head's in the way. Because we are connecting to grounds on both sides of the breadboard, we want to common the ground and our power. So we're going to take a wire and just connect the red to the red and the blue to the blue on the bottom. And you can use a shorter wire than this, I just have this one available. Excellent. Now we are going to connect pins 4 and 18 to our motor. So if we count down, I probably should have went over this at the beginning, but this is pin 1 all the way down to 10, and then up the other side is 11 up to 20. So 4. So these 2 wires would go to our motor. It doesn't matter which terminal of the motor you connect to, it'll just change the direction in which the motor spins. Now we are going to connect pin 3 to ground and pin 17 to power. Alright, so that's most of the relatively easy steps done. We have our rails commoned, we have the 2 wires for our motor, and we have most of the pins that need to be grounded or connected to our power supply set up. So our 100 microfarad capacitor is just going to sit on our rail between power and ground. This component is very important to get in the right way, so it's directional. You need the side with the little gray line to be on your ground or your negative. Like so. And we're going to do the same thing with a 100 nanofarad capacitor. Alright, so now we're going to set up our signal lines that are going to run from our Arduino to our motor controller. So we need to wire pins 1, 2, and 20 to our Arduino. And you can use any outputs on your Arduino that you want. They will be controlled by the computer. I would suggest pins 9, 10, and 11, but it really doesn't matter. So from pin 1. Notice that this wire I'm not putting directly into pin 20 because we need to do a little bit of work with some smaller components. So we need to go through a resistor to pin 20. This is RENA, so 100 kilo ohms. And then we're going to go through CENA, or a 5.6 nanofarad capacitor, to ground. So we are almost done setting this up. We have to do a few more things, and one of them is the complicated part of the circuit in the top left, wiring pins 19 and 12. So I would trace this from the power line, but you can do it whichever way makes sense to you. So we need a diode. Note that the diodes, which are red with a black line, are directional. Current flows towards the black line. So I'm just going to go to a blank rail. And then I need to go through a resistor and a capacitor in series to pin 19. RP is 100 ohms. And also from the end of this diode, I'm going to go through another diode to pin 12. And then from pin 12 to ground through a capacitor. So our circuit is almost complete. All we have to do now is set up our power supply. And this is where we're going to use our switch. We're going to plug the ground of our power supply into our ground, and the positive of our power supply just into some blank row. And I'm using two colors of wire here, but it doesn't really matter. And just the middle of our switch to our power. So when we plug in batteries, this will allow us to turn our circuit on and off. And then the last step is just sending power from our breadboard to our Arduino. And this step is very important because if you use the wrong ports here, you can destroy your Arduino. So we're just going to go from ground over to ground. Just going to start moving around. And then from power, we have to go to VIN. So there's a 3.3 volt and a 5 volt input. Don't use either of them. Make sure you use VIN because that has voltage control, and that'll make sure we don't ruin our Arduino. And then our circuit is complete. So these two wires here go to either terminal of your motor. We put our batteries in the battery pack, and then we turn on the switch after we uploaded our program to make our motor turn.